So, who to put on your board? This question comes up quite a bit. Actually, yesterday I did a consultation with someone and we went into detail around this. So, I thought I'll come and share it with the masses because I think it's very important that we think strategically about who we put on our board. And so, when you think strategically about who to ask to be placed on your board, who do you want to interview to be considered for your board, you need to think strategically. You need to think about your mission and your vision. And so, what is my mission and where am I trying to go? And who can help me get there, right? So, for example, with me, I work with youth services. And so, when you think of youth services, especially in the after school space, one of the people or one of the industries that I wanted to have represented on my board was the school district. And so I'm gonna tell you the situation and what I learned through the situation and where to go. So initially, you think, oh, I need access to kids, one after school program, and so I went to schools. I went to principals. So principals are great, but they are the king of their campus, not necessarily the district, right? But they can be very influential in the district. So if you're going to get a principal for your board, if you're in youth services or youth development, they need to be very influential and have influential, uh, be influential not just on their campus, but also with the district office. And then we'll get even deeper into this. And so started out, very not very strategic. Need kids, need access to schools. Let's go for this principal. So we did that. Didn't quite get the results that we wanted. So the next layer of that, I was like, okay, well, let's target superintendents because we want decision makers, right? So superintendents. So start courting the superintendent, got the superintendent on the board. The goal was to get access to the kids, but not only get access to the kids, by that time, the vision had changed. It was also to get grant monies, right? To be considered in the grant funding with the school district with some joint funding. And so we had this met with the superintendent. We had the assistant superintendent placed on our board. It was well, but it still wasn't quite. We didn't get what we needed. We got some assets, got some things that came up, and we were able to deal with things, but it still wasn't at the level that we needed. And so I started asking people, how do you influence that process? What am I doing wrong? We've had a principal, we've had a superintendent, and they just said, Sabrina, superintendents respond to their bosses. And I was like, okay. And then they said, who are their bosses? I was like, oh, the school board. Ding, 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 ding. You need to target the school board because the school board is the boss of the superintendent and they tell the superintendent, for lack of a better, which direction to go in. And so that made a huge difference. So what did we do from there? So I started courting the school board. So how did I court the school board? I invited them in for personal tours of our after school program during the day, whenever they had time, during the day when kids weren't there or during when the kids was there. I called it like CEO roundtable, but I didn't invite them all at one time. What I did was I invited one and we did one on one and we did a tour of the facility. We talked about all our after school programs. And I was very surprised in that conversation that they didn't fully understand what our organization did. Not only did they not fully understand what our organization did, they didn't, there was things, because STEM was very important for me, and so I was sharing with them STEM statistics and how that impacted in the after school and what that meant for the schools and the grades and all of that. And a lot of them didn't know that information. It was new information for them. So that was very surprising to me. So after that, I did tours and had those conversations. And with each of the board members, right? Then we got a school board member on our board. From there, here's what resulted in that. It resulted in us being written into the 21st Century Grant and getting funding through that. It resulted in us being able to see the models that other nonprofits were submitting to the schools so that we could align our proposals if we wanted to be in the general line item and not necessarily in a grant. We actually was able to host all of the they call parent coordinators in our facility to come in for a tour. The board member invited them in for a tour. I got to do a whole presentation to the parental involvement group. We were able to then also mass distribute flyers to the district, pick up the phone and ask for things. It was a game changer. It took me a long time to understand the evolution of if you want to build the right board, target the decision makers. And every time you target the decision makers, you ask yourself, who's their boss? And if they don't have a boss, then that's the right person you want to target. So I will say it like this, and I shared this with someone else. So if you look at, and there are workers, right, in a company, there are managers in a company, there are CEOs in a company or owners. So if you go for the worker has to get approval from the manager has to get approval from the CEO. So skip those layers and go straight for the CEO. I'll give you another example of the journey that I went on with bankers, right? So with bankers, I had great relationships. I think everybody should have a banker or two on their boards. But what the evolution was, started out when you go in and you wanting to get representation on your board. A lot of times they will send the commercial lender. I have found that the commercial lender, based on personalities, of course, and there's always differences in this, but I'm general information. Commercial lenders don't tend to make great board members because they're in the sales mindset, which is nothing wrong with that. But they're looking at your other board members as potential clients. That's what they're doing. They're in sales. So they're serving so that they can increase their portfolio and increase their circle of influence. So they're not necessarily there for the mission. Now, of course, this is generalities. So I didn't find great success in commercial lenders. So where I found success was with the bank presidents. And not only the bank presidents, but also that little known department, the BSA department, the fraud department. Uh, I found great success with them and the HR departments in banks, believe it or not, as well. Why? Because they all have direct connection with the bank owner. And the bank president usually gets to sign off on most things. But the BSA and the HR, they have direct access to the owners. Now, you're asking me, why wouldn't I go for the owner, right? In this case, I would love to have the owner, but I found if I had the bank president or the HR or the BSA, that worked very well. And they parlayed their influence with the bank owner. Now, having the bank owner has its benefits as well. So always try to get as close to the decision maker as you can. That is my point here. So, who do you identify for your board? Again, you think strategically about your mission and who can help you get to that vision for your mission. So, break it down. If you are again, I get youth development. It's just so easy for me because I did that for 20 years. But look at your mission, think about who can help me get there, and then look for the highest decision maker and start cultivating relationships with them. Sometimes, again, I say, if you're trying to build a board of 7, you're going to have to talk to about 28 people because you're going to get some no's. So when you get that no, don't get discouraged. But what you follow that up with is there anyone that you would recommend that I consider talking to? Because got a lovely list of names, and it's not only will you consider talking to, is will you do an introduction, right? So they're lending their credibility to the process, even if they say no to joining the board. So that is how you you start identifying who to put on your board. Now, if you have this great board, right? You just need to start then engaging them. But I wanted to share, who do you start to identify to put on your board? And I want you to start thinking very strategically about that. And so I hope that this helps you. If if you want to sign up for my 3-day board recruitment challenge, just comment board, and I will make sure that you get the link to register. I hope this helps someone out there today, and I want you to go away with this: your mission matters and deserves to be funded to its fullest capacity. And thank y'all for joining me this morning, and I hope this helps someone. Y'all be blessed. Bye bye.